Today we have a very special episode for you. All you beer drinkers out there, raise a glass because we're going to be talking about the state's craft brew industry and what they're cooking up in the legislative session and what might be coming down the road. Joining me today are Josh Aubuchon, partner with the Delagal Aubuchon firm here in Tallahassee, and Brooke Malone of Walking Tree Brewery. Her husband, Mike Malone, is the head brewer at their Vero Beach-based brew house.
We are in the top 5 states of production.
You're listening to A Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by City and State, Florida.
Hello and welcome to A Deeper Dive with me, Dara Cam. And today, kids, we have a special show for you. Everybody get out your favorite beverage because we have Josh Aubuchon lobbying here in Tallahassee for the Florida Brewers Guild and Walking Tree Breweries creative wizard, Brooke Malone. She's up here in Tallahassee. They're joining me from the Capitol. I am still at the Lafayette Park Rehab Center. Sorry, I can't be there with you guys in person. But welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So today, I think, is your guild's day in the Capitol. Is that today? Is that going on today? Am I missing that?
Well, you're missing it because you're not here with us, but yeah, we're all here.
Okay, so we're recording this on a Wednesday, and so we've got the craft brewers are inundating the Capitol. I don't know if you've got your people sampling your wares or what, but you've got a lot going on this legislative session. And you've accomplished a lot. I was looking back over the years of what has been done. You guys have been chipping away at trying to make it easier for craft breweries to compete in Florida. And I know it's a thing. I have to admit, at the top, everybody who knows me will know this. I am an recovering alcoholic, so I have not had a beer in 15 years. And me, because the world is a much better place with me not drinking your products. However, I love breweries, and I know we have a number in Tallahassee that are really popular, and they're gaining in popularity all around the country. So tell us what you guys are hoping to accomplish this year. And then maybe we can talk a little bit about Tide House Evil and some of the obstacles that you guys have been facing that put you at a disadvantage.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. So I'll kind of address what we're working on this year. A couple things, really, just some minor cleanup pieces dealing with brand registration. So what we've got is you've got every time a brewery makes a brand, and really for all intents and purposes, think like a recipe, they have to register with the state and pay a $30 fee. A lot of times these craft brewers are maybe testing out new recipes. They're trying to figure out something new and innovative. And so it's actually kind of burdensome to register it and pay $30 every time you do this, especially when you got a guy, that's making maybe 200 different recipes a year. And so the legislative piece this year would basically just say, look, you have to register it, but you don't have to pay the $30 fee unless it's being sold out in the marketplace. And really that kind of gets the crux of it anyway. If it's going out in the marketplace, you've got the labeling, you've got to get an approved label from the TTB, from the Fed. So it would make sense to register the brand and get that out there that way. But for folks, just wanting to innovate, this will significantly decrease what it is they're paying, to the state. The other issue that we're working on, and we've got some language floating around about it, is lowering the licensing fees. The license fees for a brewery are $3,000 a year. And for folks that are making, 100 barrels of beer versus a brewery that's maybe making 1 million barrels of beer, it doesn't really make sense to have the same license fees. So we want to stratify that a little bit and make it so that you're doing, if you're under 60,000 barrels, then your license fees would go down.
Okay, well, that seems equitable. And that $30 registration fee, I was reading about that bill yesterday. I was listening to I guess it passed a Senate committee yesterday. And I was surprised because it seems like, oh, $30, it doesn't seem like a big deal. But then I didn't realize there were all these recipes that they're trying out that they're paying to register even before they go to market. And some of them might never go to market. Maybe, Brooke, you can talk about what kind of experimentation you guys do down at Walking Tree.
So inherently, the craft beer industry, blew onto the scene because of the innovation, right? A brewer is a chef. I can attest that I've yet to meet a brewer who also does not dominate his home kitchen. And
Speaking from experience there, or
I absolutely am. I love cooking, but my joy of cooking has gone down significantly since meeting and marrying my husband, because there is nothing like cooking and having someone shoot a temperature gauge from across the room at your pan and tell you it's off by 7 degrees. But that's how their minds work. So to make it really practical, and paint a very easy broad stroke picture of why it doesn't make sense, it's, when a large macro brewer like, Budweiser comes in, they only make 4 or 5 different types of beer, right? And these are going on shelves everywhere. So yep, this brand and this brand and this brand, it's watched by the state. We need to make sure they're getting their taxes collected, all that good stuff. But when I make a batch of, let's say, a kettle sour, I split that up into 4 100-gallon batches. I put blueberries in one. I put lemon in another. This one gets passion fruit. This one gets, peppers. I have to pay $30 for one beer that I just added a different fruit to. Now, I got 100 gallons of that, but there are smaller brewers than me. And when they're brewing batches that they split in 3, it might only yield 1 keg each. So now they've split their batch and they make the same beer, but fruited 3 different ways. And they only got 1 keg of each. Now they've got to pay $30 on that. They're making no money.
right.
It's almost like ordering a pizza, and you got to pay $2 for the topping. We understand that. But what if the pizza maker had to pay $30 to a government entity because you added pineapple?
Oh.
God forbid, because it doesn't belong on a pizza.
No, it doesn't. I have to say, yes. Thank you for that. I really, yeah. No, pizza. I'm a margarita pizza person anyway, so.
Oh, we should be best friends.
Okay, let's
Me
be best
too.
friends.
All right.
So, and that's all these issues are part and parcel, just chipping away at a regulatory structure that is quite a bit antiquated.
Yeah.
The real issues, the real crux of the issues that we want to work on are franchise reform and self-distribution.
Right.
And as you're required, a manufacturer is required to go through a distributor to get to a vendor to sell beer in the marketplace. Well, when you've got 400 plus different breweries throughout the state and 9,000, nationally, at times it's tough to get on the back of a truck when you're required to use one. And so what we're looking at is, if the smallest of the small have an option where they don't need to sign with a distributor, that they could be able to self-distribute their own products. It'd make more sense for them to help grow their brand. And most breweries that are really in the need for self-distro are so small that distributors don't want to pick them up. If they're making 100 barrels of beer a year, that's just not big enough or practical enough for a distributor to say, I'm going to invest my time, effort, and energies to promote your brand and deliver your brand when it's, a handful of kegs a week. The other
well,
issue
let's talk about that for a minute, the distribution, because I was looking on your website, and I have to say, there's a great website. You have 2 websites, the Guild's website and then your, I guess, political committee website, Freedom for Beer, which I found very entertaining. And, the distribution, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems as though you have to, once you sign up with a distributor, you're locked in forever, it seems. Am I wrong? I think you had something on your website that said like, oh, it's easier to get out of a marriage than it is a distribution deal, which I thought, golly, that seems like very archaic.
Yep.
It is. And I think a marriage is probably, think about it, it's like a harem. I feel like we're owned slave people by a contemporary gatherer of beings. And they can choose to interact with you or not, but you don't get to leave. So you're inside the fence. You can't get out. Your performance is irrelevant. It doesn't matter whether you're beautiful or old or young or big or small. It's completely up to the discretion of the king. And there is no other business model in the nation that operates this way, where you give birth to a business and then hand over complete control and entrust that someone is going to perform your business plan for you. That's not how this works. It doesn't apply to wine. It doesn't apply to liquor. So we know it's certainly not about the ABV. It's not. This is originally was set up to protect the distributor when there were only 3 manufacturers of beer. Back in the 50s, when Joe Schmo distribution company has got 4 trucks and he's delivering beer in his local town, he only had 2 products to sell. It was going to be a Miller product and a Budweiser product. Well, Joe Schmo's competition opens a small distributor in the same area, and Budweiser says, "Oh, I'm going to go over there instead." Well, now this guy's lost all of his product. He's got nothing to sell. That made sense then. There were 3 people making beer. Now there's over 450 in this state. It has gone from 50 breweries when we were opening Walking Tree in 2015 to over 450.
Wow.
That's exponential growth.
Less than a decade. Yeah, really very quick.
Right.
Yeah.
But you've got products and alternatives and lots, and instead of collecting everyone, which is what the original intent was, I think they're learning. Distributors are seeing a change on the horizon. It smells different. The future smells different than it always has.
Well, but the problem then is if they decide, okay, well, they've got however many say they have 10 microbreweries that they're distributing for. If they say, oh, it's not worth it for us to have Walking Tree anymore because you're not making enough batches or cases or however, I'm sorry, I don't, again, this is kind of this industry has cropped up and flourished and bloomed since I quit drinking, so I'm a little bit behind, but if they decide we're just not going, you sign up with them and then they don't distribute your products in the way that you want them to, are you still stuck, or how do you get out of that contract then?
You're stuck. You can't. Yeah.
There's nothing you can do.
Does that happen? Does it happen where they say, not profitable enough for us? Yeah, you sign up with us for life, but we're going to put you on the back burner.
Occasionally I've heard stories and know some breweries where there have been mutual decisions and a distributor has released a brand.
Okay.
But let's talk about what that is practically. The only reason that that's occurring is that inherently maybe that brewery wasn't really designed for distribution. They couldn't meet the need. They're missing the mark. Breweries that have set themselves up and are performing, it's just like any business owner, not all of them are sharp. Some of them are just guys that really like to brew beer and so I've heard of situations like this, but a performing brand, nobody lets that go.
Right.
It isn't.
Okay.
And so they don't let it go. And that's based off of their vision of our performance. Well, what if my business plan is stronger than your business model? And in some situations, that's the case. I'm a smarter business owner than this distributor. And that's incredibly frustrating.
Right.
Yeah, and just like in any other business, there's good and bad actors. You know, where there's like a mutual consent of termination, that's absolutely happened, and I've helped guide, you know, some of our membership, you know, that when they come to that it's happened. But you've got others. One in particular right now is locked in litigation with their distributor, and their distributor has basically shelved them and said, we're not gonna do anything to you. We're not gonna sell your product, and he has no recourse.
Wow.
He's sued. He's tried to use everything he can in the statute to get out of it, and they basically have said no. And so when he said, okay, well, you haven't performed, you haven't responded, I'm going to terminate and sign with somebody else, they then try to slap an injunction on them to say, no, you're stuck with us. You're not getting out.
Huh.
I'm not selling your beer, but you're not going anywhere.
That's got to be very
and-
frustrating for somebody who's, you know, locked in like that and can't get their product to market. I guess if you're selling
Yeah.
it at your own location, then you can do that, right? If you have
Right.
a brew pub or
Yeah, if you've got
whatever.
your own tap room, you can sell there, but you know, you can't get it to the bar down the street unless you go through a distributor. I mean, we're
Right.
required. You know, it's one of the few businesses you're required to use a third-party wholesaler to get it out to the marketplace. And going back to Brooke's harem analogy, which by the way is new for me to hear.
I
but
love
hilarious.
that.
I'll have. Even worse is that when you do sign with someone, they can sell your rights or assign them to someone else, make money off of it,
Oh,
and you have no choice. You're stuck with whoever they decide to sell or assign you to.
So it really is like being in a harem.
Yeah,
right.
I know. That's what it's.
And when the
perfect analogy.
king's done with you, he can just be like,
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
why it's a perfect analogy. Yeah, I love that.
They're
Wow.
brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I would think now, though, with the popularity of craft beer, that there would be a lot of competition among distributors to be able to deliver. And you're shaking your head no. They can't see you, but I can.
Yeah, well, there's been distributor consolidation, so you find that more and more of them are consolidating, buying up other ones, and that's just how it gets. It's like that. You've got one distributor now that dominates, you know, parts of the marketplace throughout the country, where they've got, you know, houses. They basically have you know, their whole supply chain throughout multiple states, and so in the end, like there's an illusion of choice that their consolidation, they're bigger, more powerful, but they're, you know, focused on their products that are the high volume, high growth, as opposed to, you know, I guess satisfying everybody equally.
Right. Well, and then I interrupted you when we were talking. You said there were two major issues. One was the self-distribution. We talked about that a little bit. And the other, I think you were talking about, is franchise. Is that what it is?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's the franchise piece, and really, it's not that. I'd say we've got draft language, and it's not, hey, let's just be able to terminate at will. You know, that's not fair. But you know, give somebody, you know, if there's reasonable expectations of what that performance should look like, to be able to say, hey, in 90 days, 120 days, we terminate. You know, we'll figure out a mutual fee. Or some sort of you know, mutual agreement to terminate. But you know, if there's a disagreement, if we're not working, then we ought to be able to get out of it like anybody else. And I guess the funniest part about it is that wine and spirits don't have the same franchise laws that we do. So it's again, it's not about, you know, all sorts of alcohol or health, safety, and welfare. It's literally about having control over those brands.
right.
And we want our members to be able to freely negotiate their contracts like any other business in the state.
So I'm a little confused about the franchising issue. What is the current what are the current restrictions?
Okay, so that is kind of what we were just talking about. The franchises, we are owned. We are owned in a franchise relationship with a distributor that we can't exit. And that's what we're asking for. So it's the self-distribution that we kind of didn't touch on. So we might have flipped that a little
we might
bit.
have gone a little back.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, that's my bad.
No, not at all. We talked about it so much. The words are just kind of coming out.
Right.
Yeah.
Self-distribution is interesting. Again, these laws don't apply to wine or spirits. It's interesting. In the state of Florida, you can go to a farmer's market and I could sell wine if I made it, and I could sell liquor if I made it, but I can't sell beer. And there's a handful of things that operate the same way. This applies only to beer, but not spirits or wine. And so it's an indicator of a very concentrated, powerful business entity that has won for years and years and years, had control for years and years and years. And what we've seen happen is, in the beginning, there was a power grab that distributors wanted to own as many, I want as many craft beer brands as I can possibly snatch up. It's this major gathering. And then it kept growing and it kept growing and it kept growing. So instead of the distributors doing this power grab, trying to get these brands into their portfolio, they started buying them. And, some breweries decided, yep, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to run. And they watched their brands get blown up and brought regionally or sometimes nationally, and then systematically destroyed, because that's not really inherently what the craft beer industry is. It was for a little while, but it's not going to be any longer, because eventually Florida's going to have 800 breweries and not 450. We have to exist in our areas, our footprints. That's what people are want. It's that buy local, eat local, support local. You want your local beer. I'm going to have a dozen breweries in my neighborhood, and that's okay with me. But what's not okay with me is, and when I say I'm talking about everybody, all of these members of this guild, is that Florida Keys Brewing sells their beer to the distributor, who drives from Miami, picks it up, brings it back to Miami, where it has to lay to rest for 24 hours by law.
Well, not 24 hours. It just has to come to rest.
Come to rest.
Yeah.
Right. To come to rest by law. Then puts it back on the truck to drive it back to the restaurant across the street from Key West Brewing.
That's crazy. I mean, it sounds crazy. That just sounds wacky to me.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so self-distribution, while it might not work for everybody, Walking Tree Brewery is not interested in self-distribution. But I will tell you that there's a number of smaller guys that not only own a brewery, they own a restaurant right across the street. They can't bring their own beer to their own restaurant. Maybe it's not across the street. Maybe it's across town. Maybe they're a restaurateur that owns 3. They can't do that.
They can't deliver their own beer to their own restaurant.
Correct.
Unless it's a fully secondarily licensed brewery, you can't transfer to basically to another location. And while we would say that a lot of folks are they get into this and they don't want to buy trucks and deliver beer, but for the smallest guys that are saying, I just want to deliver across the street, or perfect example besides from Key West, we got several breweries in Ybor City, and they're like, if we signed with a distributor, they would have to pick up our beer, drive it across town, drive it back to deliver it 6 feet. Let me just wheel it next door. We'll pay the taxes. The taxes aren't the issue. We're happy to do that. But just give us some, ease of getting this out into the marketplace.
So what's the holdup? I mean, we know that the beer distributors have had a lot of power traditionally, but craft beer's a thing now. I think the governor, I want to talk about the pandemic in a moment, because I think the governor, what? We don't want to talk about the pandemic?
We do.
We're good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I thought I heard a screech.
That's more of a like that. There it is again.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But I know that it had it impacted. I spoke to a lot of folks at the time that were negatively impacted by the closures. But back to the holdup with getting some of these laws that could be antiquated or are antiquated laws changed. While the beer distributors have had a lot of power over the past 30 years, craft brew is a thing now, and I see a lot of hipster beards like yours, Josh, walking around in the Capitol back when I was walking in the Capitol. And there's a lot of younger legislators who I am sure are aficionados of craft beers and, patronize their local breweries. So, what's the holdup in getting some of these laws changed? I know this legislation about the distribution and franchising has been floating, no pun intended, around for several years now. What's keeping it from passing?
Well, I mean, it's a balance of things. It's hard to get, it's hard sometimes to get our membership to be motivated to put in the grassroots effort. Hey, talk to your members, talk about this issue, tell them why it's important, especially if, they've got a great relationship with their distributor and they don't need self-distribution. They're kind of like, hey, I'm kind of happy where I'm at. Like, I don't want to like, rub people the wrong way in the industry. But the other aspect too is that, passing anything is difficult. Passing any legislation is hard.
Yeah, it takes several years. It takes several years. You float a bill and then.
Yeah, it does. And the easy thing on the distributor side is just to say, no, we don't want any changes. No, we don't want to see anything happen. Just tell them, we'll kick this to the curb. We'll address it later. We're going to be united against this. And I think it's easy. Sometimes it's easier to say, you know what, unless I've really got somebody just banging on my door telling me this is important, then yeah, we'll just let it rest for a year. We'll revisit the issue. And, the great thing about working with somebody like Brooke is that Brooke doesn't take no for an answer, nor does she ever quit. And so she is, part and parcel of us banging down the doors and telling folks, we need to make this happen, and getting our members back to being energized to come, get out of being complacent and come back and be ready to fight.
Get off your lazy asses and let's do this.
Mm-hmm. And
from the creative wizard herself.
Exactly. And we found we want to work with, it's not us versus them, because we truly do, and Brooke will be the first to admit it, we truly do consider the distributors partners in this, and they're performing a function that most breweries don't want to do. And so we are trying to come to the table with them and say, just tell us what you think is rational and reasonable, and let's work on this together so that it's not an us versus them. Let's just figure out what works. Kentucky just passed something that was fantastic, that had its own franchise piece for craft breweries, so that the big contracts with AB and Miller Coors are never touched. And they took their distribution, I think self-distribution, I think they went to 10,000 barrels. For self-distribution, yeah, which is huge. That'd be massive, and it'd be great for the breweries that want to engage in it. But they found a way to work together, and by God, we want to do the same thing. And so, aside from motivating our members and kicking their asses, we have been focusing a lot on working with them and saying, tell us what you think is rational and reasonable, and let's get this done together. We don't want to fight if we don't have to, but by God, going to, if that's what it comes down to. Am I wrong?
Yeah. No, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we're,
So you've got a plan for how to break down the wall. I mean, I remember talking about liquor. We can spend a whole hour talking about that. Stick with us. We're here with Josh Aubuchon and Brooke Malone.
From the team that brought you Deeper Dive with Dara comes a brand new e-newsletter on the Florida man who may be president. Governor Ron DeSantis is his own conservative brand, an unapologetic culture warrior who could run for the White House as early as 2024. The DeSantis Files is your one-stop shop for the best in reporting, analysis, and opinion on the man's supporters call America's governor. Delivered straight to your inbox twice a week. Learn more by emailing editor@cityandstatefl.com. That's cityandstatefl.com. Here at Deeper Dive, we want to hear from you, the listeners. We invite you to send your questions, comments, and feedback to our mailbag. You can reach us at deeperdive@cityandstatefl.com. That's deeperdive@cityandstatefl.com. Get your 2 cents in by sending us an email.
Welcome back to A Deeper Dive with Dara. So what's your favorite beer, Josh? Now you've got Walking Tree,
You better be
the
careful.
creative wizard
You
of
better be
Walking
careful.
Tree sitting right next to you. So yes, you have to be careful.
So how about I phrase it like this? So because they're all my children. I can't pick a favorite. But let me
Good
just
for you.
We know we all have favorite. I only have one, so mine is my favorite, but I know everybody really does secretly have a favorite.
Well, so let me tell you actually. So, and I love her baby cake stout, oatmeal stout, and it's the time of year. Like I don't want to drink an oatmeal stout when it's hot out.
Right.
When it's nice. No, when it's when it's fall, it's perfect.
5.4%. It is totally a sessionable
It is
beer in the
delicious.
summer.
And by the way, the governor ordered it when he came to her brewery, and I think that's pretty awesome that he is an actual fan.
He's a stout drinker.
Yeah.
There you
go. I'll tell you the beer
I always
that made
liked
me
a
fall in
stout.
Yeah. See, she knows. So I will say the beer that made me fall in love with craft beer was really a Belgian beer back in like 2002, 2001. It was a beer from Bostiel's brewery called Triple Carmelite,
Huh.
and I had it in Gainesville, and I remember drinking it, going, "This is what beer is supposed to taste like." And so I was on a mission. I had to go find this beer, and back then. Craft beers were really not even a thing in Florida because they had just changed the bottle size to allow it used to be only 8, 12, 16, 32.
Yeah.
Now it's at up to 32. So all these weird sizes, a 22-ounce bomber of beer was now legal in Florida.
Right.
And this came in a 33 centiliter bottle, which was brand new, legal to Florida from Belgium. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is beer. And that was it. I was hooked. I wanted to chase everything I could. I wanted to find everything I could and try.
What year was that?
That was 2002.
You spring chicken.
Yeah.
2002 in Gainesville, Florida.
And how about you?
1992.
Ooh.
Boone, North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
Abita Turbo Dog.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Abita Turbo Dog.
Yes.
And I remember taking that first sip and being like, ew, gross.
Oh really?
And then I don't think I drank another beer for years. And it was my husband. I met Mike, and he was, that's my husband,
Mm-hmm.
and he's making beer. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just not a beer fan. And he's like, yeah, no, that can't be, we can't, listen, are we going to continue to date? He's like, I got to convert her because I really like this chick. So he started bringing home and making all these different styles. And he brought home a Moohoo from Terrapin.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, no. I already had one of those dark things. That's an Abita Turbo Dog that looks just like it. And he goes, funny you should say that, and pulled out an Abita Turbo Dog. And I had a different palate. I was a teenager then, and here is 25 years later, and I loved them both. And I was like, awesome. I want you to make me a beer somewhere between these two. And that's where Baby Cakes came from. And Baby Cakes is what got us into brewing, won medals, started winning money. And I looked at him and I said, this is what you're going to do for a living, because that will make you happy. And I would prefer to have a happy husband than a miserable husband who hates his job. Wow. And that's what we did.
Yeah, and what was the award? It was a gold medal at the World Beer Cup.
It won best stout in the nation.
Wow.
It was World Beer Cup, so best stout that year for the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, congratulations. Should we do this again? More, yay you. And also yay you
us,
for
right?
following your dreams and doing what your heart told you to do, because that's a scary thing.
Well, it is. And my this is my second marriage, and my first one didn't go so well. And I learned a lesson from that, and that is, you got to love how you spend your time.
Yeah, that's
you
so
have
true.
to enjoy what it takes to pay the bills. And if you don't enjoy what it takes to pay the bills, then have less bills and figure it out. And that's what we did for Mike. Mike is inherently overjoyed at being able to make beer every
That's
day. And I
awesome.
love watching it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. And so, how many kinds of beer do you guys produce?
So I normally keep a rotation of 24 to 26 of our own taps on our
Wow.
own brews at the tasting room.
And you're in
How
Vero
many?
Beach, just right? Is Vero Beach?
What?
Vero
Vero
Beach?
Vero Beach, yeah.
Just give a little shout out
Yep.
to Walking Tree.
Thanks. Mike is we are a little less playful and innovative in the beer world. Mike is very much a purist. He sticks to, how do you say it? Rheingebot. Reinheitsgebot.
Yeah, the old German purity law.
What,
So
wait,
he's
wait, wait,
into
wait,
very
wait, wait. You
classic-
can't just throw that out there because I don't know what Reinheitsgebot is, and I'm sure I mispronounced it. Come on, what's that?
So it's actually the first food quality law ever passed. It was passed in Germany in 1516, and
Look at you.
oh yeah, I'm a nerd. Yeah, you knew that. And basically, at the time, they said the only things that can go into beer are water, hops, and malt. And because they didn't understand, they didn't know what yeast was back then, in
Right.
1516. So it continues to this day. It's still on the books in Germany. And the only things that can be used to make beer that complies with Reinheitsgebot is as water, hops, malt, and yeast. And so just those 4 ingredients.
Huh. No
So
blueberries?
some people
Wait, how about the blueberries?
Okay, and that's
Yeah.
and that's where the divide is. So there's 2 different kinds of brewers. There's brewers like us that this is how you make a beer. And then there's the other brewers that think that we're the most boring thing on the face of the earth. And why don't you throw everything you possibly can into it? And that's where there's, I don't know how many brewers you've met, but I'm pretty sure every brewer somewhere on the spectrum, because there's just one way to do things. That's just how they are.
Mm-hmm.
They have their vision, and that's what it is. We are our own version of a restaurant. They're a chef. This is what they cook. This is how they believe their approach to their beverage, which is food. And they all look at it differently. So some people are willing to throw a Twix bar into the mix, and others think that is sacrilege.
Yeah, one of my husbands used to brew his own beer, and it was good. It was the kind I liked. It was along the lines of the Guinness kind of stout. Which
nice.
is boring compared to what you guys are making, but again, this was a long time ago.
We got a big Guinness Day coming up in 2 days.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Good Irish dry stout. Yeah.
Yes, it's Guinness Day on Friday. It's going to be St. Patty's Day.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So that all right? So whenever you ask for a black and tan, is that the ones that the Irish don't like? That the British? Because I know there's one way that you're not supposed to say that. It's a half and half someplace, and it's a black and tan in another place.
Yeah. They call them in Ireland. They call them specials.
Specials. That's
Yeah. They don't
specials.
They don't really like calling it a black.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so Friday, everybody get out your specials. It'd be big fun, I'm sure, at the brewery, St. Patty's Day. Now, tell us a little bit about how much production we've got going on in Florida. Is there? You said there's over 400 breweries.
Yeah, so that's actually that's a bit of a misnomer. I'd say that's TTB license. That's TTB permits, so federal permits. Because there's quite a few that have multiple permits that we would count as like one brewery. I'd say there's at least 340-ish with CMBs, which is a full manufacturer's license, and those folks. So let's see. I'm trying to think what. I know the economic impact, the data we have from the Brewers Association is what 4.1 billion.
Yep.
And Brooke is actually looking up the latest and greatest stats from the economist Bart Watson, who's the shout out to Bart Watson, the Brewers Association. He's the brains behind all this data.
2.5 gallons per adult over the age of 21 production.
Yeah, that sounds right. So
we are in the top 5 states of production. The state of Florida is $4.1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And I am pulling up the data on barrels. This is where Mike comes into play because he holds all these numbers in his head.
Uh-huh.
But we're at over 450 breweries reported reported barrel sales. So
and some, it is a little heavier because we've got Yuengling in state. They've got a big brewery in Tampa,
right,
and they're the largest craft breweries in the country.
they're
So it
considered
is a
a
little.
craft brewery still?
They are, yeah, they
Huh.
are.
That's
So
interesting.
yeah, if you're below like 2.6 or 2.7 million barrels of production, I think under the BA, the Brewers Association's guidelines, they still consider them craft breweries.
So we're talking about the level of production, and it looks like there's a lot going on here. I did want to talk about how the COVID affected the industry. Did anybody have to go? Were any of the craft brewers forced to go out of business, or was it a struggle? Tell me what that was like for you all too.
So we lost a lot of our brothers and sisters
Yeah.
in those shutdowns nationwide. I think that a number of small businesses in general didn't survive. Why did we make it out the other side? It was simply because of community support. We are inherently knit into our communities. Craft breweries are. I'm not even sure what the reason is, short of beer is our superpower, but I always tell my team, I'm like, we're kings of the dorks. Like back in high school, we weren't that
Yeah.
awesome. We had
It's very
now,
science-y, right?
yeah, like we are the popular kids, and
Yeah.
it's weird. And so we've found ourselves in places where we've gotten involved in local politics, and breweries are changing regulations and laws and shifting the way that communities work and getting involved in nonprofits because hey, the superpower is beer. And so when COVID happened, there's also a little bit of a revolt just in general on our nature. We're kind of a punk industry anyway.
They like to do things their own way.
Yeah, and it was hard, but our communities, our people didn't want to see us fail. The stories, and my hair stands up right now just thinking about it over and over, of watching the customers come to the front door and buy beer and get it in crowlers and get it in growlers and whatever they could do to try and put money in the till.
Wow.
And then it started to turn into something else. And I watched this. Okay, fine. And whatever you make of what y'all went through during that, there were some people who just didn't care what was going on in the world. They needed some social outlet and they were done. I watched this tailgating thing happen, and I watched people come to the front door and buy their to-go beer, and then they just said screw it, and they sat in the parking lot. They knew they couldn't come in.
Wow.
And what was I supposed to do with that? It wasn't my parking lot, that was city parking. So I'm kind of looking at this parking spot going, all right, fine, this is happening. And it was tough. You're thinking about public perception, but you're also getting prepared to fire employees.
Right.
And you don't want to do that. And I am really glad to say we kept everybody.
Wow.
And we barely kept everybody, but we kept everybody.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and I sit on the national, so the Brewers Association, the national trade group. I sit on the government affairs committee, and I sit on a small subgroup of other state guild directors. And
you're so much cooler than I am.
Oh, she yeah.
Or nerdier.
Yeah.
We are we're such dorks.
But I will say,
Me too.
Florida came out a lot better than our other states, than our friends in other states, and honestly, we were open back up before a lot of other states, and it was almost kind of a my other state friends were almost like, oh, Florida, like they'd roll their eyes because they're like, yeah, better weather, and you guys are back open, and you're functioning, and we're like, yeah, like we were very lucky, and a shout out to Ray Treadwell, who was the general counsel at DBPR at the time. He and I man, we put our heads together to figure out a way to get folks back open with food service licenses and
Oh yeah.
helping food
I
trucks
wrote about
coordinated.
that
Yep.
with the crock
Yeah.
pot, with the hot pockets and the crock pot of the hot dogs.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You know what, Ray, that man is an unsung hero. Ray and I were just putting our heads together, and we came to a solution that Ray said, I think I can sell this.
Yeah,
And,
hot pockets.
lo and behold, we get back open, and God bless him, because the guy is he's a good man.
Uncrustables were my favorite. The Uncrustable peanut butter jelly sandwiches.
There you go.
You have to buy an Uncrustable.
Yeah.
Uncrustables.
So,
okay.
in an industry that's used to being creative and figuring things out, if it's got to be held together by, wire and whatever we can find, by God, we're going to do it. And that's just, it's cool to work in an industry and get to work with these folks that's how they are. They're creative and,
We don't have choice. There's no precedent for it. This is an industry that is just kind of popped up. Boom, here it is. And so we figure things out. I tell people, and I don't mean to tout my husband a lot, but man, he's
pretty great.
He's pretty great.
Yeah.
I've watched this guy become he knows more about plumbing, thermodynamics, electrical, the stuff, and then the chemistry, the things that he has self-taught himself, because the desire is there. It blows my mind. And then I get into places within the guild, these socials and our beer fests, and I realize I'm surrounded by these guys.
Wow.
And the more you engage in conversations, you realize that, by the world's standards of success, they are, and previously, let's take it back 20 years, they're failures. They may not have a college degree. Some of them could probably barely keep their grades up. Most of them were probably, in one way or another, your typical ADHD kid that someone put on Ritalin when they were in the second grade, couldn't pay attention. But now they found what they liked. They focused on it. They are some of the most brilliant people I've ever met. The innovation that I'm going to figure it out. Everything is a puzzle. And they're friends. I have worked in a handful of industries where people just fight nasty, business to business. These guys will literally give the other guy their recipe. Oh, here's exactly how I made it. Here's the recipe. It's kind of like saying, here's a grill, here's some charcoal, and here's a steak. You still might not cook it like I did, but give it a shot.
Right.
They
so there's a
collaborate.
community, and they support each other. Geez, I don't know. Maybe I should start drinking again. I'd want to be part of that.
Oh,
just kidding. Any of my friends who are listening, they'd be like, oh, hell no.
Well, they got through COVID. Through this they got through this gnarly, unprecedented time, and the industry figured it out.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, is there anything you'd like to add before I let you get back to your Capitol days? This has been fantastic. I can't wait to have Brooke back, and Josh, and hopefully Mike can join us too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for doing this, Dara. This is great.
Yeah, we'll let you know. We're going to start making a heck of a lot of noise. We're going to start making some significant demands here at the Capitol on this franchise reform and self-distro. So we'll make sure to keep you in the loop there.
So yeah, that's why I want to stay on Brooke's good side.
Okay, good, because I love me some rabble rousers. So.
It's my favorite thing to do.
Good.
I need my talking points, and then I like to go raise hell.
Oh, all right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up right there. Thank you so much, Josh Aubuchon and Brooke Malone, president of the Florida Brewers Guild and the creative wizard of Walking Tree Brewery. Thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait to have you guys back on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Freedom for beer.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
A Deeper Dive with Dara is a podcast by City and State Florida, hosted by Dara Cam, produced by Ryan Daly, and music for the podcast was recorded by Periodic Labs LLC and performed by Ryan Daly and Danny Reyes.